Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Move podcast, talking about the Ironman. That's right. The Ironman World Championships, which I think there's a lot to talk about. It's really unique this year. They separated the men's and the women's race. Of course, the men's race was, a few weeks ago, and the women's race was just yesterday in Kona. The men's race, of course, and we'll talk about the second part of the show, was in Nice, France. The women's race was in, well, where it always is, in Kona. But I want to get everybody's opinion on just maybe the reasoning behind splitting them up and just thoughts and impressions of how that went down, which I can't think of a better person to ask than Jimmy Riccitello, who's in Kona, was there yesterday, my old friend Jimmy. And his title, check this out, Global Director of Rules and Officiating for the Ironman. So thanks for getting up early, Jimmy. Also joined by Leanda Cave, 2012 Ironman champ. Leanda, good morning.
Morning.
And my old friend Simon Whitfield, who used to do triathlons that lasted 2 hours.
I think I had it figured out.
He's like, this isn't that big of a deal. And also, for those who followed it for a few years, my swim run teammate 1 year out there at Orcas Island.
Good
Boy,
time.
Simon, you and I didn't. We're like, yeah, that's good. We did it. We don't need to go back.
Started okay, and then it caught up with us. That's how that went. Yeah.
Oh boy. Today's show brought to you by Zwift. Indoor cycling season is just around the corner, and Zwift has got you covered. We do Wednesdays have fired back up. We do Suffer Sundays have fired back up. Zwift has a new smart trainer. The Zwift Hub is now better value than ever. For $599, not only do you get a smart trainer with a pre-installed cassette of your choice for no fuss setup, you also get 1 year of Zwift, but you also get free shipping when you enter the code ZwiftHub at checkout. So head on over to Zwift.com, get your Zwift Hub, use that code ZwiftHub for free shipping. Also today brought to you by OneSkin. Are you tired of cycling through endless amount of trending skincare products that all claim to smooth wrinkles, firm skin, and give you a youthful glow? Even you, Jimmy? Jimmy's like, whoa, keep telling me more. Tell me more. But at the end of the day, a lot of them don't deliver results. Well, support for today's episode comes from OneSkin, founded by a team of 4 female PhD-level longevity scientists with over 15 years of experience studying the biology of aging. Now, here's the key. They discovered a peptide called OS1. Technically, it's OS-1. It is scientifically proven to target aged skin, also called senescent cells. That is the main source of skin aging and actually reduces the biological age of skin by several years. I know I got your attention now, Jimmy. For a limited time offer, our listeners can get 15% off OneSkin with our code THEMOVE. All you got to do is head to oneskin.co, not .com, but .co. Again, the code is THEMOVE at oneskin.co. All right, let's talk about these amazing races. Yesterday, of course, you were on the course, Jimmy. Leanda, you have more experience at this. It's certainly, well, than any of us, right? Well, now that's maybe Jimmy did an Ironman. So you did a couple of Konas, but we were talking in the pre-show of just, Lucy Charles, what a performance! 4-time second, led the race from start to finish. The other interesting thing that I noticed, what was it? 14 women under 9 hours.
I believe it was 16.
16 women. Just a few years ago. When this whole thing started, the dudes were going 9 hours.
Yeah. And actually, I think when I was racing, there was probably 5 women who'd gone under 5 hours. So that's just like historically, that's just not in Kona, because Kona, like, to go under 9 was like one of these, times that was just almost impossible to do. But now it's like, you're not even in the top, obviously now top 15. So it's amazing.
Wow. Yeah. And I love swimming, right? Everybody sort of knows that, but Lucy Charles must really fly in the water. Like, that's the part that I can, but to lead the race from start to finish, that's certainly never, I've never seen it ever been done on the men's or women's side. But what a performance.
Yeah. Her swim, I think this year was probably better than I've seen it even in the past. I think she lends that to the fact that she was injured early in the year and she could only swim. So talking about a swimmer who could already swim, just focusing on swimming, I mean, it just puts her even ahead of the game. But like you said, like the talent was there in the swim. You had Lauren Brandon, you have a couple of women who are also collegiate swimmers in the race, and they couldn't even hang on her feet.
Not even close.
No,
she came by early on in the bike. I couldn't believe it, and just like Leanda said, she was purposeful from the get-go. Oh. And, she went by and it's just, people have that look sometimes, where you just know. And it was incredible. I think Lynn Lemire, you guys, I think was the only other person, she wasn't the first female winner, but one of the first. In fact, I think she was the only female competitor in the race that year, maybe, but she obviously led from start to finish, but I think that's it. I don't think it's been done by anybody.
You mean you said purposeful? That's exactly what she looked like. She looked so focused the whole day. That was, everybody else seemed at points to be losing. They just were caught up in other things. And she was just she looked like this. She was on a mission, and you could kind of feel it right through. You're going like, oh, I think something's different today. That was incredible performance.
Jimmy, I'm just because you know her so well, and you obviously watched it yesterday. But let's just I want to nerd out a little bit on the swimming piece, because and like, for example, if she was in a pool, right, 25-yard pool, and the set was 10 100s, and the interval was, just make it cushy, make the interval 150. We'll make the interval 120. Like, how fast does she swim? Like, what is she easily going under a minute every time?
I think so. I defer more to Leanda, but man, I mean, like Leanda said, she put a couple minutes onto some of the best swimmers in the sport. And so, yeah, I mean, she would click off sub minutes, I think, but she's got the open water swimming figured out too.
Right.
She was churning through the surf.
Well, I think not only do I want to nerd out on it, but I think for the folks who are into triathlon or do tries or even just swim masters, if they're listening, we can all, I think, understand just how fast that is, right? I certainly, I grew up swimming. I love swimming. I'm back in the pool again now. I certainly couldn't do that. I think it puts it in context of just how fast these women swim.
Yeah, I mean, she's perfect in the water. Watching her swim, it's not like she's even looking like she's swimming like at that intensity. And she's doing it for 2.4 miles. But yeah, it's incredible. And I think back to the days when I was racing. I mean, I came out of the water maybe second or third, pretty much on average, and I could hit like 1.618 in the pool.
Meters.
And yeah, so you just think like Jimmy said, like she's close to that 62 second mark per 100.
Wow. And then rode just over 4.5 hours.
Yeah, no, that's that's what I want to touch on, because I mean,
yes, tell us
the guys back in the day I was racing, that was what they were doing, like it was like a 4:30 ride for men back in we're talking like 12 years ago, but that was a pretty decent solid ride. Now like the women are clocking those times, and not just Lucy. We've got like a few girls who went in the 3:30 range in the race. So it's like, that's just this new standard. It's like incredible.
She looked dialed too, didn't she? Her whole position and just how compact she was. And she's not moving around the bike. You saw some of they were moving back and forth and they looked uncomfortable and
fighting it.
All tucked in there. It looked great. Yeah. To see the details that she's put into that, it's quite something. Did you feel like because she'd been injured for the year, she either was going to go one of two ways? She was going to do what she did because she's fresh and she's like ready to go, or she was going to be underdone. But I felt like going into that, I was like, oh, she either crushes this or she's not a factor. And she certainly, that was what a performance. I mean, when you break the record, that is the performance. So
I think that was the big question mark, right? Like, what were we going to expect from Lucy Charles? I mean, she'd had 4 seconds coming into this, injured for the early part of the year, not just a little injury, like a broken metatarsal, I believe. And I mean, that's not an easy injury to recover from, because you've got to take complete pressure off that foot. So it's no running and pretty light cycling, if anything, right? So, I mean, even I think she would admit, like, intentional coming into this race to get to the top of the podium. But what I love about Lucy is no matter what, like, she's going for the win. I mean, it took her 5 attempts to do it, but she went for the win. And there she is, like, even with some misfortune earlier in the year. And I believe also I listened to an interview after the race, and she was actually nursing an Achilles issue coming into this race. So it wasn't like she was like super confident for the win, but nonetheless, she laid it all out there.
Yeah, with the rumored Achilles injury, runs 2:57 still after blitzing the swim course, riding 4:32.29, comes home in sub 3 hours, wins by 5 minutes. No, sorry, 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Lori Bowden would do that, and you'd think, oh, just pure runner. That's incredible. 2:57, incredible. There you go. You got Lucy swimming like she does, riding 4:34 and then running 2:57 is incredible. And to think that Achilles injury all week, she'd be dealing with just that knowledge of thinking, like, my Achilles may or may not make it. So to focus on that is just extraordinary. Yeah. What a performance.
That's one of those injuries. I mean, no running injury is pleasant, but the Achilles is that's the one where you just, I think running sucks in general. All right. Let's just all maybe agree on that. But boy, the Achilles injury is so nagging to think you got to, how many steps in 26.2 miles and not knowing if it's going to blow up. Right.
She started to hitch a little bit too, didn't she? 10K to go. She went from, there was a little bit of hitch started coming into that. And I thought, oh, wow, you could lose that whole lead like that. But she didn't. She just kept trucking on. That was amazing. Be chased by Anna. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, speaking of Annie Hoog, like, wow, she did a PR marathon, broke the marathon record by, I think, 3 minutes to be
2:48, 2:48.23. She ran. She beat Miranda's marathon record by 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes, 2:48.
Yeah. And that's, again, like, that's back what men were running. Now it's like the women are in this league. And not only that, like, Annie was over 12 minutes down off Lucy coming into the run. I mean, that's a significant gap. I mean, if we're looking at in terms of distance, that's over the pace she was running, 2 miles down off Lucy going into the run. And I think a lot of athletes, a lot of people coming that far down would probably count themselves out. But I mean, Annie had a weapon. That's a run that you can, I mean, put in the record books for sure. Like, that's amazing watching her, like, that form, that run. I mean, that's the difference. You put Annie next to some of these other girls running, and it's like when she passed Laura Phillip in the run, like, Laura's an amazing runner, but then you've just got someone even better, which is like these girls are just incredible to watch. And then also I want to speak a little bit about, like, last year's winner, Chelsea. I mean, didn't have the race I'm sure that she wanted. I mean, she was over 22 minutes down off Lucy, but still managed to run herself into 6th place, which, like, these girls running up from those positions, like, normally would count themselves out, but they're still able to get there and get up on, in that top 10 place. Yeah.
Chelsea, she ran a 2:53.
That even puts in a better perspective what Lucy accomplished there. To think that Chelsea only outran her by what, 3 minutes?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Wow. I remember back in the day, Peter Reed said to me, the boys run under 3 hours, the men run under 2:50. Yeah, no. No. Anna runs under 2:50. That's just incredible. Yeah. Laura Phillips, she looks so great. We were all watching Laura thinking, oh, wow, like, that stride and just how strong she looked. And then Anna just ran right over the top of her. Wasn't even just went.
Well, look, I mean, we're seeing people run fast these days, right? I mean, it's this, not to get off the topic of Ironman real quick, but I think now, I mean, look what happened in the marathon just last week. I think we now have to start really thinking about somebody actually running a marathon in under 2 hours, right? Now we're only 30 seconds off. You know, whether it's, and there's been a lot of talk about new shoes and new shoe technology and you know, all parts of it, whether it's good or bad, but it's here, and I suspect here to stay, and certainly was here yesterday in the Ironman. But you know, people are running fast all over the world.
My goal as a little kid was to be the first under 2 hours. Do you think I still have a chance? I remember as a little kid thinking, I want to be the first person to ever run under 2 hours for a marathon.
Okay, well, let's go around the horn. I want to go last, but Leanda, do you think Simon will run under 2 hours?
What are the odds? I can run under 2 hours, just not for a marathon.
Exactly.
Put some wheels on those shoes of yours.
Yeah.
I was like 8, but I had big dreams. So
yeah, we've got carbon plates now. Who knows what's next in the technology side that's, you know, contributing to these fast run times.
Yeah. And same goes for the bike. I mean, we're seeing it. You see it in the Tour. You see it in professional cycling. You know, the time trials, these guys are, you know, they're going 55K an hour in the time trials. That was the speeds that we would go in the team time trial, maybe. So the bikes, you know, whether it's the frame, the wheels, the position, you know, that is obviously helping, but that doesn't take any, you know, that's dropping the times. Pretty amazing.
What did you think of all the positions yesterday? There was so much variety, wasn't there?
Is this like, you know, this new tuck position? I think I saw it first with TJ Tollickson back in the day. We all thought, you know,
he was crazy. They thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
What was he doing?
Yeah. And I also noticed, you know, they put bottles down their vest or chest to kind of put a bearing, if you like, but technically illegal. But because I mean, Jimmy can probably speak more to this, is that because it's a bottle and they're using it, they're allowing it. Is that right, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think that's why it's allowed in for now. World By is tolerant of it, but I've never seen a person outside of Taylor yesterday, just because her bottles weren't staying in her cage, actually pull a bottle out of their shirt and drink from it. You know, they are putting it down there because they feel like it makes them faster. And most of the testing I've seen shows that it does. But I don't think that's going to be allowed much longer.
Does it turn out to be dangerous if you crash with a whole bunch of water bottles?
I think so. And where do you draw the line? You know, people, they're already using bottles that are shaped, you know, in a way that could even further enhance the aerodynamics. And I think I can see them putting some limits on it. Just like they did in cycling. You know, it's not allowed in cycling.
Well, what they're doing, if you guys watch the summer, the Tour, what they're doing is now, you know, taking the race radio and wrapping it with some, you know, extra tape to fill that up even more and mounting that on their chest. Yeah. Marginal gains.
There you go.
Marginal gains. We do have to talk about Taylor, our top American, 5th place. Just 11 minutes off. Look at these times. They're crazy. I mean, no, sorry, 4th place, Taylor. My bad. 8:35. I mean, we're talking about breaking 9 hours. That's way under 9 hours.
Yeah. Talk about MVP for the day. Yeah. I mean, if there is one in triathlon, she's it. I had so much fun watching her. I mean, she was also very reactive with people around her. I saw her speak with you at one point, Jimmy, in the race. And
that wasn't me, actually, but
it wasn't you.
It was my doppelganger.
Interesting.
But wasn't it amazing just to see such young talent? I mean, she's already qualified for next year's Olympics. She's already been a silver medal Olympian. Already won 2 world championships in the 70.3 distance, and just stepping in there and a total long shot. I mean, sort of, just coming into Ironman completely green. And you could see it all over her face. She's like, what's going on? Yeah, but like, wow, I just had so much fun watching her, and and relating to the fact that I was also in Kona for the first time, doing my first Ironman, running my first marathon, and all these like kind of feelings and emotions came back, and I completely relate to, falling apart on the marathon. It was not unexpected from Taylor, but also, I mean, still to nail fourth place at those in that field with those times. Wow, 24 years old. I mean, she's just gonna go to a different level in her career. And after this, I think.
Leanne, is it true that she decided last minute just to go over and do it because her mom was racing? I read that.
Well, she qualified after racing Finland, right? So I think it was one of those things. Well, why not? I think because her mom was racing, like you said.
From what I understand, she had a checklist of things to do this year. She made it through the checklist, and the deal was if she qualified for Olympics, won World Long Course, she wanted to go Hawaii and race with her mom, and she did it. And there was a lot of going back and forth, but I don't know. She looked at what she did. She's incredible. So athlete.
I think her mom finished, but
I was gonna say, how did mom? I'm kind of curious how mom did.
But I don't think it matters. I think her mom was happy regardless. It's a team effort.
So cool. I mean, for those who watch the event, the one thing I do love so much, and of course I've never done it, but I love races that are out and back, right? So you can see if you're truly competing and trying to gauge where your rivals are, it's very helpful. But race like this, right? You're out there with mom. Mom sees you go by. You see mom. I mean, it's cool. Or you see other folks on the course, whether it's the bike course, the run course, going supported each other. It's a cool vibe.
It is a cool vibe, and that I think that's a big part of it. The everyday athlete, and Kona's a little different, right? Because most people qualify, but it is cool to be on the same course at the same time with the Simon Whitfield, with the Leanda Cave, and that does add to the vibe for sure.
That's our sport to a T, isn't it? My favorite races were the Bob's Lake Triathlon was a swim from over here to over there-ish and back. And then you rode around the lake, but you weren't allowed on the bike until the last person was out of the water. I mean, that's like quintessential triathlon. Kona is amazing. I grew up watching it. I love it. But at the end of the day, I love the triathlons that are just the made up backyard version of it that we all kind of started with. And that's, it's great to see it on the big stage. But at the end of the day, I think we did just those little fun, unique triathlons that are the quirky side of triathlon that we all love. I think is really
I think that a lot of us can relate to back those days and where it's moved and where we see it now. And I think that's kind of awesome. And where it's going, who knows? I mean, at this point, I see there's new professional Ironman Pro League, or that's something that was announced the week of. I mean, about time. What took them so long? Damn, missed that boat. But also, it's just nice to see, like, wow, these guys can actually make a living now, not just like scrape through. And I also like to see that. Sorry to get off topic, but I like to see that some of these guys who aren't exactly top 10 finishers yet are actually still making some money, which I think those are the guys who, they really need it. They don't have the sponsors paying. They don't have a lot of the prize money that comes in. So they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel just to get to the start line in a lot of these events. So I really love seeing like this shift in like prize money, or like at least distribution going a little bit deeper into the field.
Exactly.
There's 1,000 people, 1,000 Ironman Pro members. I was shocked. I learned that this week. That's a lot of, to Leanda's point, that's a lot of pros.
Huh. Before we get to the men's race, Jimmy, what was and I think it played out great, but what was the thinking behind separating the men's and the women's world championships?
Well, I mean, I'm not the boss, but I think the true primary reason is just to give the women their day, and
right.
The sport's gotten to the point where the Ironman sport and the island itself, there's a footprint there, there's a finite amount of people we can put on that pier. And I think the women's only race was well received when it was a 2-day event, but we had issues. The 2-day event here wasn't really sustainable.
With the local community?
Yeah, it's a strain on the volunteers, the community. And, so I think it's how do we keep the women's only event, and keep the race in Kona. And so it's moved to this kind of, every year in Kona, but alternating years, men's and women's. And it was cool, man, to see over 2,000 women. And a couple of other little facts I learned that I thought were fascinating. 100% finish rate in the swim. We've never had that.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's ever happened at any triathlon, let alone Kona. And then the highest overall finisher rate of any race we've had, women's only event. A lot of extra slots were given away, and I think some people were critical of the caliber of athlete, but I don't know. I think it's cool to see this event and to sort of, I don't want to say lower the barrier to entry, but when it's known that more women can qualify for Kona, I don't know, hopefully it'll get more women into the sport, but it certainly showed the difference, I think, in men and women a little bit, just that 100% finisher rate. I'm not saying, the men wouldn't have finished the swim, but I think it was a 90% overall finish rate, and it was not an easy day. It was a hard day to figure out. But, an event where lots of first-time athletes were there because so many qualifying spots were available, and yet we still had the highest finisher rate. So there's a lot of coolness going on.
It's amazing.
Separate from the amazing pro women's performances.
Yeah. Cool.
I also loved, I guess you're there, Jimmy, but I think we watched a lot of it on TV and normally when you watch, or in the past when you've watched it, when it was the same day, men and women racing on the same day, the race didn't start to focus on the women until the men were through the finish line, right? So we kind of got this tail end of the race. But I mean, we watched all women all day, just like the men's race, all men all day. And it was actually really, really well executed from a remote standpoint, like watching it on YouTube, on the live stream.
Someone who loves the sport, I loved being able to watch the whole race, be so engaged in the women's race. And then same with the men. When it was the men's race, I wasn't trying to look two places. I got to watch just the men's race, and that was great. I think one thing we should mention is Daniela, just that performance.
Right.
After all these years and all she's accomplished to come, she finished 5th. And
she was 5th, but she's won the race 5 times.
5 times, yeah. She was right in the thick of it there. She tried to play a factor. Just a class, she's a classy champion.
That's the last Kona, like we saw.
I was wondering.
Race his last in Nice, and now we watch, these two legends, race their last Ironman world champ. Not that I'm sure they're going to be removed from the sport altogether, but it was a nice swan song to watch. Daniela still lay out a really strong performance.
Is that her last one? She said that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Post-race conference. I mean, hey, we've seen comebacks before, but
that's an end of an era. She's a great champion. So
good for her. Great career. Let's jump into the men's race. But before we do, today's show also brought to you by HVMN. We often hear that fasting and exercise are good for the brain. HVMN launched the world's first drinkable ketone in 2017. Ketone IQ is their latest innovation on ketones with improved effectiveness, taste, and cost. It's no wonder that HVMN supplies ketones to more than 60% of the teams in last year's Tour de France, rather this year's Tour de France, and has an active $6 million contract with the U.S. Special Operations Command. You can save 30% off your first subscription order of Ketone IQ. Just head on over to hvmn.com/themove. Again, that's hvmn.com/themove. Also today brought to you by AG1. I start drinking AG1. I make fun of myself all the time, but it's true. I'm not great about fruits and vegetables and all the stuff that, we're supposed to eat. But I found a little hack, and my hack is AG1. It boils down to really just me wanting to help take control of my health, all for less than $3 a day. It is the foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's and my body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune system support. AG1 is the supplement I trust to provide the support my body needs daily. And that's why they've been a partner for so long. I'm on the road. I'm here in Boulder for Parents Weekend for our daughter. Got my travel packs. I never leave home without it. Head on over to drinkag1.com/themove. Again, that's drinkag1.com/themove. Check it out. Last one of the day, Helix Sleep. This is, like I just said, I'm on the road. I didn't have my Helix mattress. My sleep reflected it. All right. This is, my Helix Sleep mattress that I have back at home in Austin is a fully customized mattress. You go on, you take the 2-minute quiz, you talk about your sleep, your characteristic sleep, your partner's characteristics of sleep, and they completely customize the mattress. They also have 14 unique mattresses, luxury models, mattresses for big and tall sleepers, and even mattresses made for kids. Don't take it from me. Wired magazine and GQ has also named it the best mattress on the market. Over 12,000 five-star reviews. Helix Sleep is offering 20% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/themove. That's helixsleep.com/themove. All right, let's talk about the men's race. This one. Now we're getting into the thing. The men's race, of course, we just talked about the women's race held in Kona. The men's race held in Nice, which of course is a triathlon that's been around forever, right? This is a very special part of the world for me personally. That's where I lived when I raced all those years. And I think people ask me all the time, where is the best bike riding in the world, right? They want you to, who knows what they want you to say or what they think. But I think the south of France has the most epic and most beautiful bike riding in the world. I really do. And that's always my answer. So, so they brought and actually it's a great question, Jimmy. When Mark Allen was winning it was just the long distance world championships. It was in these, this is going back to the early 80s.
Yeah.
The event's been around forever.
I even did it once. That's how far back it goes. Didn't do very well, but I did do it. It's definitely a monument for sure in our sport for all those reasons. Just the venue is, to me, is like the perfect triathlon venue. And obviously I'm partial to the mountains and that terrain too. So
8,000 feet of climbing on the bike course.
No, it's a real deal. And
that's for real.
Yeah. And those descents too, man, the people that did their homework on that course, going down those roads in the aero bars, that's the stuff that you always amaze me, and the time you spend on your bike to learn how to ride fast on that thing, in the corners and in the bars. You could really see the difference in the men that put time on that course, and the Rudy von Bergs, the Sam Laidlows, people that, that went there, reaped the benefits. It was minutes saved on the downhills.
Wow.
So, free speed.
They grew up on that course, didn't they?
Say that again.
They grew up on that course. Sam grew up in that area. Rudy grew up in that area. They knew that by the back of their hand. And you saw it. It played out like that.
You did see it.
And science, of course, Simon Laidlow won with the time of 8:06:22. Simon, in the pre-show you were talking about, which I didn't know, but I sort of stopped you because it felt like it was going to be a cool story. But a lot of history with his family in the sport of triathlon, and tell us more about that. I'm curious.
Well, I think from what I understand, the Laidlow family moves to France to set up this venue where they're going to train triathletes. And, our sport has these, there's all these little nooks of it where whether you're in, Cairns in Australia or you're in Tucson, there's these pockets of where our sport is really thrives and people go and they make a pilgrimage to it. And the Laidlows are one of those people that people have been making the pilgrimage to go train with that in that training center, that it's not even a training center, that village that they live in. And this kid, Sam Laidlow, is growing up watching these people come through, and he's saying, oh, one day I'm going to win Kona. And they're saying, oh, that's cute. That's neat. Like, oh, little guy, one day you'll do it. And then all of a sudden he's a teenager and he's still saying it. And then he's a 20-year-old and he's still saying, then all of a sudden he's a 23-year-old and he's second at Kona. I met him in Edmonton 2 years ago. He's a good human being. He's a nice guy. It's interesting. I walked up and I said hi, and the first thing he did was introduce me to the people he was with. It's like a sign of like, he's a nice guy. He's got personality. He's a big character. But at the end of the day, the first thing he did was made sure everybody got introduced. And I just thought that really stood out to me. And then he goes to Nice and he's sitting there and his dad's his coach. His mom's his heart and soul. She's like the artsy lady who's just in the background there, making everything work and just keeping the balance there. And his younger brother's into it. And then Sam says, I'm going to go do this. And he has a rough year. It's all the ups and downs, but he's learning the whole time. And then he just nailed that race. I mean, it seemed like that was just, once he was on the run, it was a little bit like the same as Lucy, just he was on a mission. And that was fun to watch.
Youngest ever. Boy, we're just seeing this in so many sports. Obviously, we on the cycling shows, we talk a lot about it. Youngest person to ever win the Ironman, 24 years old. I mean, this guys, we know. I mean, this was always thought of as an event that you had to, not that you had to be old, but you had to be a little older, right? And 24, just a kid.
It's fun to think that when we were watching Mark Allen, Dave Scott, and all the way back, all the way back to Wolfgang Dietrich and the whole, that crew, that they were slowly inspiring this generation, that all of a sudden there's this 24-year-old who knows the history of the sport. He knows where it came from and who was there before him. And you saw that emotion play out where he was just on a mission. And because of the legacy and history of our sport, it's just great. It's great to see.
And to your point, Leanda, because you were talking about Lucy Charles's bike time, Sam Laidlow rides 4:31. Now, I just said that there's 8,000 feet of vert on the bike course, which is a lot, but Kona's not flat, right? I mean, if you go look at somebody's Strava file or any of the women from yesterday, their Strava file, Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought the Kona bike course was right around 6,000 feet.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's definitely not flat. It's
what it is never flat, right? So over time, but nonetheless, you're getting, if you compare and contrast 8,000 vert for the men, 6,000 vert for the women in Kona, again, we'd probably need to double check that, but we're talking about how fast she rode yesterday, 4:31. Yes, it was a hillier course, but Kona's not flat. That puts her performance really into perspective. And then, of course, Sam gets off and runs 2:41, which is picking them up and putting them down.
Next year, we get to watch the reverse. We get to watch the women in Nice and all of the dynamics that are going to play out there. And then the men go back to Kona and Gustav will be there and Christian will be there. And, we get to see the big rematch. So, the sport's in a good place. It's great to see.
Yeah, it's hard to, like Lance, as you were saying, like, having the two races in two different locations, you can't compare apples to apples here like we used to in the past when they were racing on the same course. And even the course itself, like last year, it was like different days, but the same course. But like Jimmy can tell you, the weather can change, on a dime in Kona itself as well. So there's these variables which make it difficult to compare each race, like the male versus the female in terms of times. But I've raced that course in Nice, and I can tell you, I think my time there was at least an hour slower than my best Ironman, just because that course, technically, it's difficult. It's not so, like, Kona's not a technically difficult course. It might have the elevation gain that you mentioned, but those descents, I mean, I'm a good descender, but I got my ass whipped on those descents.
Our man, speaking of technical parts of the bike course, our man Lars sent me a fun factoid. 13% of the participants actually used straight up road bikes because they thought it was that technical.
Yeah, in hindsight, I would have raced on a road bike. Yeah.
Me too. in my era. It was different, but we talked about that.
Yeah, we went back and forth on this. It's just how not just the technical piece, but just having something. We know time trial bikes or true triathlon bikes are a little heavier. So if you have that much climbing, right? Do you go with a lighter bike that you can handle a lot easier on the tricky downhills, or do you figure out a way to make your time trial bike as light as possible and also learn how to ride that bike on a technical course? That's what makes the race beautiful, right? You're going to go up here. It's epic terrain. Lars also told me 45 athletes use rental bikes. I don't think they were. That's Lars.
Magnus showed up with a dropper post. Magnus had a dropper. I thought that was brilliant. The guy's an engineer, and he engineered it. He's 6'4", so he had to figure out a way to get low. He went and did a whole bunch of course reconnaissance, but he also came to the conclusion, I'm putting a dropper post on a TT bike.
Yeah,
and it paid off.
Well, that's this course is not far from where Milan San Remo finishes. And of course, this is 2 years ago. That's the first time we saw a dropper post used in pro cycling, which was one to basically win the race. So, I mean, I think as the crow flies, that's probably San Remo to Nice is 50 miles. It's a very, very similar terrain, very similar technical descents. So good for him. Amazing. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Jan Frodeno. I mean, we talked about Daniela, but these are two folks that are on the Mount Rushmore of triathlon that are ending their careers.
Yeah, we've seen it all from Jan. I mean, an Olympic champion in the Olympic distance, like moving his way up to the half, and the Ironman. Like Daniela didn't have that success at Olympics. She managed to shine in the Ironman, but Jan, man, he's really that all-rounded triathlete who's been in the sport, I think, for as long as I have, and longer now. I don't know. I'd love to know how long he's actually been racing professionally for. I don't even know that stat.
Well, here's a stat. So this is Jan won the gold medal in Beijing. Here's a quiz. Does anybody know who got second? Well, one guy on this Zoom knows who got second.
A guy shorter than him. Jan's incredible. It was so poetic to see him, I don't know, to win the US Open like he did in Milwaukee there, all the build up to racing Christian, the last chance they get to race. Christian wants a crack at it, goes right to the front. It looks like all day you're like, oh, I think Christian's got this. And then Jan just used experience and just played out his race perfectly. And to see his celebration at the end, from all he's been through, all the recovery from being in, he's had the Achilles injury, he's been thing. And then to see him in Nice and, the day didn't go the way he wanted, all the way down to his suit ripping, which in a sense is also just part of the poetry of the whole thing. And yet he had he almost had like a victory lap marathon of. Yeah,
he embraced it.
He did. And it was it wasn't, it was just to see him so genuinely loved and loving the sport. That was everything it's supposed to be. And I was really proud of him as an athlete, but as a friend. It was just great to see him be celebrated like that in the way that he should be. So cool.
So cool. Yeah. Curious as well. The Norwegians didn't, and if I believe what I read, of course, the two big, arguably the two best Ironman athletes at the moment, potentially, allegedly, didn't race because they were concerned about recovery time for the Olympics next year. Did I read that right?
I think that's just the prep for I really understanding what they need to do to be able to be at the front end of that race next year in Paris. I don't think Gustav's going to have a hard time qualifying. He's had a hard year, including the passing of his mom. I think that's a very tight knit group. Christian too. I think that affected him a lot. To see the races, to see him race all those races. Remember, he flew to Singapore. He went to Long Course Worlds. He got sick. He was obviously in Milwaukee. He was at the Paris test event. And then to add one more layer to go to Nice, I think he's honoring the fact that Alex Yee Hayden Wild, Darren Comics, the French world champion. None of them are doing this. So he's honoring the fact that if I want to race head to head with those guys in Paris, I can't be doing both. I thought I love that he's limitless. That's what the word coming for Taylor comes to mind, is she's limitless. People say that's not possible. You can't do that. And she says, oh, let me just correct you. So I like how she did that. But I think they came to the conclusion, hey, if we want to honor the gift and we want to honor the preparation it's going to take to be ready for Paris, we can't go do Nice, and there's lots of time to go do those things. So I think that's probably the factor there. That was the factor.
And I did have the experience of last year to know like how that recovery played out into their season this year, which obviously, I mean, they've had some great races, but they didn't come up as good as they had done in previous years. So
I think they're to the training, not just the recovery, but the specifics to training. I mean, Alex Heath running 29 flat now. If you're not doing that, you're not running. He's incredible. I saw a clip recently of him on the treadmill doing his VO2 test, and it was astounding to see just his running gait. And so how does Christian think? I don't know. I don't think you can do both. At some point he had to say, I'm in for this and I want to have a crack at Paris and defend my title, and we'll see how it plays out.
Well, speaking of running, Patrick Lange gets second, which we've seen him just pull off incredible performances, including the run. Runs 2:32, almost, and gets within, just under 4 minutes. 2:32 at the end of that bike course.
Wow.
Come on, amazing.
He's
is pan flat, so you have that in his favor. Not that I'm saying it's an easy bike course like you said, but that's a fast run course.
Jimmy, what were the temps like on race day?
It was good, really good weather. Yeah. It was perfect temperature. I mean, as perfect as you can get when you're exercising for 8.5 hours. But
compared to Kona, which we had a steamer yesterday, and it's always hot and muggy in Kona. This is totally different.
No, it was Nice at its best for sure, weather-wise.
Yeah,
we got lucky.
Hey, Jimmy,
on that course.
What did you learn from Kona or from Nice because there was just the men there and just the women there? Is there something that was learned from those venues that we'll see in the next iteration of Ironman? I don't know. I mean, I just is suspecting that with just the women there was something they did that was different that we'll see move forward with the sport. Is there anything off the top of your head?
Well, I think there's indications that it's viable, that the athletes will get into a single, if I can even say, the single gender race, and those questions were asked, beforehand. It's going to ruin the sport and separating the men and the women. But I think at the world championship level, again, I think it's cool to have single gender events. It's also cool to have mixed gender events, but at the world championship level, it's neat to give one group the sole focus, and so I don't know if anything new, Simon.
You think the men missed having the women there, but the women didn't miss having the men there? Is that the unspoken?
It was interesting to see, I'm staying at the King Cam Hotel, and I saw a lot of men walking around strollers, and just like they were definitely pushed to their limits, of what the hell am I going to do for the entire day, right? I mean, it might have been some men
being a father,
yeah, exactly,
alone, no help,
yeah, no, and I think just the viability of it, and I think there's a future for it. It's cool, but I don't know as far as, I mean, certainly helps from a operational standpoint. There are differences in how each athlete, registers and races, and everything's different. So learning that and seeing it, and then, with the amazing ops team that this event has here, just figuring out how to tailor it, make it even more special for the athletes, because they are different. So
I think just from a spectator's perspective as an outsider, I think it was wildly successful. I think it's a great idea.
It was awesome racing, and you just having the women on the course to themselves was cool.
And look, you have a community in Kona that, I think it's hard to sort of explain just how. This is total lockdown, right? You have one road, right? The Quinquay Highway that the airport is also on. So, the entire, or at least that side of the island, is completely shut down. There are no flights. There's the tail on that, how it affects hotels and tourism, et cetera. So you're dealing with a place that just can't sustain. So it is what it is on that side, but they did the best they could. I thought it was great.
Yeah. And I think 800 and some odd women when it was men's and women together was the most women we've ever had on this course. And last year, I think there were 1,200 and, over 2,000 this year. So you won't get 2,000 women, with the men's and women's event. To your point, Lance, you can't, there's just no room for the athletes, and there's no room for the entourages. It straps this place. It'd be different if it was just 2 or 3 days, but it's a couple of weeks now that people come in and you use the community.
Excellent. Well, team, thanks for showing up. This has been great.
It's been great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's nice to see you, Simon.
Nice to see you too, Leanda.
It's been a while.
Yeah, a long time.
When I grow up, I want to be like Simon. We were talking in the pre-show. But you had a soccer game yesterday and doing some paddle boarding.
Can I give a shout out just for a sec? Can I give a shout out? I wore my Bays United jersey under this. Last night we beat the undefeated 3 years in a row. The Cowichan 49ers have been undefeated. Nobody on the island has beaten them in the over 35s Masters League. And last night we beat them 1-0. And I've celebrated in sport a couple times in my life, and last night I was definitely one of those moments, jumping up and down with, because it's the camaraderie of the fellows and being there and the whole journey we've been on as a team. And I told them last night, we were at the bar, and they said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going on Lance Armstrong's podcast." And they said, "Please mention us." So
there we go.
Huh? There you go, fellas.
Dude, I'm glad we got that in. You'd be in the doghouse if you didn't get that in.
Oh, it would be. Yeah, they were pretty excited. I was pretty excited. That's life. I played I did individual sport, but I grew up playing soccer and hockey, and I didn't know how to talk locker room. I didn't know how to talk bench, and I've had to learn it. And the boys, it's you saw it after COVID when we all came back and everyone saw each other for the first time. And was eye to eye, like, "Oh, you're back, you're here, we're here again on the pitch." And we don't care who kicks the little round ball into the rectangle. We just care who shows up and how everybody's doing. So that's life these days, is taking care of kids and paddleboarding and working for the feed and playing a little bit of soccer. So love it.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Great to see everybody.
Thank you. See ya.